He was 34 years old, broke for 7 straight years, when a stranger asked him a simple question in an elevator. His answer took 3 minutes. That conversation changed everything. David Martinez had been broke for so long that he had stopped believing wealth was possible for people like him. At 34, he worked 2 part-time jobs, cleaning office buildings at night and stocking shelves at a grocery store during early morning hours, just to afford rent on a studio apartment in the worst part of town. 7 years earlier, he had been a promising software developer with a decent salary and dreams of starting his own company. Now, those dreams felt like stories from someone else's life. The collapse began when David's employer, a mid-sized tech company, was acquired by a larger corporation. The new owners decided to eliminate redundant positions, and David's entire development team was laid off within 3 months of the acquisition. At 27, he had been confident that his skills would quickly land him another position. The tech industry was booming, and experienced developers were in high demand. He gave himself 3 months to find something better than his previous job. Those 3 months turned into 6, then 12, then 2 years of increasingly desperate job searching. The tech industry had shifted toward newer programming languages and frameworks, and David's skills were becoming outdated faster than he could learn new ones. Every interview revealed gaps in his knowledge, and every rejection chipped away at his confidence. Younger developers with fresh educations were competing for the same positions, often willing to work for lower salaries than David needed just to survive. The financial pressure became overwhelming quickly. David had saved some money, but not enough to survive extended unemployment. He burned through his savings within 4 months, then started accumulating credit card debt to pay for basic necessities. The monthly interest charges alone consumed whatever small income he could generate from temporary jobs and freelance projects. By the end of his first year of unemployment, David owed more than $30,000 to various creditors and was falling behind on every payment. Pride prevented David from asking family for help until it was too late to make a difference. His parents lived on a fixed retirement income and couldn't afford to support him financially. His siblings had their own families and financial obligations. When David finally swallowed his pride and asked for assistance, the amounts his family could provide weren't enough to address the scale of his problems. A few $100s here and there helped with immediate crises, but couldn't resolve the underlying issue of his unemployability in his chosen field. The breaking point came when David was evicted from his apartment after falling 3 months behind on rent. He had been living on credit cards for basic expenses, but even those were maxed out and cancelled due to missed payments. Everything he owned fit into his aging Honda Civic, which itself was at risk of repossession due to missed car payments. For 2 weeks, David slept in his car while searching for any housing he could afford with his inconsistent income from temporary work. Finding the studio apartment felt like a small victory, but it required David to accept a much lower standard of living than he had ever imagined possible. The neighborhood was rough, the building was poorly maintained, and the rent consumed almost all of his income from his cleaning and stocking jobs. David had to choose between having a phone or having internet, between buying groceries or paying utility bills. Every month was a careful balancing act of which bills could be delayed without immediate consequences. The psychological impact of extended poverty was harder to bear than the physical discomfort. David watched former colleagues advance in their careers while he struggled to afford basic necessities. Social media became painful. Every post about promotions, vacations, or major purchases reminded him of how far he had fallen behind his peers. He stopped responding to messages from old friends and eventually deleted most of his social media accounts to avoid the constant reminders of his failure. The morning that changed everything started like any other. David had finished his overnight cleaning shift at a downtown office building and was heading to his second job at the grocery store. He was exhausted, running on 4 hours of sleep, and dreading another day of mindless stock rotation. The elevator in the office building was slow, and David found himself sharing the ride with a well-dressed businessman who seemed to be heading to an early morning meeting. The man was friendly and tried to make conversation, asking David about his work in the building. Most people ignored the cleaning staff, so David was surprised by the genuine interest. The conversation was casual at first, comments about the weather, the building's unusual architecture, how early they both had to start their days. But then the businessman asked a question that caught David completely off guard. "What did you do before this work?" David hesitated. He had learned to avoid discussing his past because it inevitably led to awkward conversations about what had gone wrong. But something about the man's direct, non-judgmental manner made David answer honestly. He explained that he had been a software developer, that he had lost his job during a corporate acquisition, and that he had been unable to find work in his field for several years. He expected the usual polite sympathy and quick change of subject. Instead, the businessman became more interested. His name was Robert Chen, and he owned a small manufacturing company that produced specialized equipment for restaurants and hotels. Robert had been struggling with an inventory management problem for months. His company had grown large enough that manual tracking was becoming impossible, but small enough that expensive commercial software solutions didn't make financial sense. He had been quoted thousands of dollars for custom software development, which seemed excessive for what appeared to be a relatively simple database problem. Robert asked David if he thought he could solve an inventory tracking challenge. David's immediate reaction was doubt. He hadn't written meaningful code in years, and his skills were outdated compared to current industry standards. But as Robert described the problem in more detail, David realized it was exactly the type of system he had built many times during his career. The technology requirements were actually simpler than most modern applications, relying on fundamental database concepts that hadn't changed much over the years. The elevator ride lasted only 3 minutes, but by the time the doors opened, Robert had offered David a consulting opportunity. He wanted David to assess the inventory problem and provide a proposal for solving it. If David could create a working solution, Robert was prepared to pay $5,000, more money than David made in 4 months at his current jobs combined. They exchanged contact information, and Robert asked David to visit his facility the following weekend. That evening, for the first time in years, David felt something resembling hope. He spent hours researching modern approaches to inventory management, reviewing programming languages he hadn't used recently, and sketching potential database designs. The work felt familiar and exciting in a way that reminded him why he had originally chosen software development as a career. Even if nothing came of Robert's offer, David had rediscovered something he thought he had lost forever: confidence in his ability to solve technical problems. David also realized something important about his 7 years of struggle. While he had been focused on what he had lost, his career, his financial stability, his confidence, he hadn't recognized what he had gained. Working multiple jobs had taught him about different industries and business operations. His years of financial struggle had given him insights into cost effectiveness and resource optimization that many developers never learned. The combination of technical skills and real-world business experience might actually make him more valuable than he had been before his career was derailed. David spent the entire weekend at Robert's manufacturing facility, immersing himself in understanding the inventory challenge completely. The company produced custom stainless steel equipment for commercial kitchens, which meant they managed hundreds of different components, raw materials, and finished products across multiple production lines. The existing system was a combination of handwritten logs, basic spreadsheets, and institutional knowledge that lived only in employees' heads. The complexity was significant, but David could see the underlying patterns immediately. Raw materials moved through predictable stages of processing. Finished products had clear categorization systems, and the production schedules followed logical workflows that could be automated. Most importantly, Robert's employees were frustrated with the current system and eager to adopt something more efficient. David realized he could build a solution that would not only solve the inventory problem, but also improve overall operational efficiency. David proposed a 3-phase development approach that would allow the company to maintain operations while gradually implementing the new system. Phase 1 would digitize the existing inventory tracking without changing workflows. Phase 2 would optimize those workflows based on data analysis from Phase 1. Phase 3 would integrate the inventory system with production scheduling and customer ordering. This approach minimized risk while demonstrating value at each stage. Robert was impressed with David's systematic thinking and agreed to fund the entire project. The total contract was worth $15,000. More money than David had earned in the previous 2 years combined. More importantly, Robert introduced David to other business owners who were facing similar technical challenges. The manufacturing sector was full of successful companies that needed custom software solutions but couldn't afford enterprise-level development costs. Working on Robert's project reminded David why he had originally loved programming. Unlike the corporate environment where he had worked before, this project had immediate, visible impact on real people's daily work lives. When David implemented the digital inventory tracking, warehouse employees could find components in minutes instead of hours. When he optimized the reorder algorithms, the company reduced material waste by 30%. Each improvement had clear, measurable benefits that everyone could understand and appreciate. David completed the project in 3 months while continuing his part-time jobs, working on the development during evenings and weekends. The effort was exhausting, but it felt completely different from the mindless drudgery of his cleaning and stocking work. He was solving interesting problems, learning new technologies, and building something valuable. When the final system went live and worked perfectly from day one, David felt a sense of professional accomplishment that he hadn't experienced in almost 8 years. The success with Robert's company led to referrals and additional projects. David discovered that many small and medium-sized businesses needed exactly the type of practical, cost-effective software solutions that he was uniquely positioned to provide. His years of financial struggle had taught him to work efficiently and focus on essential features rather than unnecessary complexity. His experience with multiple industries gave him insights into business operations that purely technical developers often lacked. Within 6 months, David was earning more from consulting projects than from his part-time jobs. He quit the grocery store position first, then gradually reduced his cleaning hours as his consulting income became more predictable. By the end of his first year back in software development, David was earning nearly $60,000 annually, more than he had made at his previous corporate job, with complete control over his schedule and client relationships. David's breakthrough came when he identified a specific pattern among his most successful projects. Small manufacturing companies needed software solutions that were too simple for large development firms to handle profitably, but too complex for generic software packages to address effectively. This market gap represented a massive opportunity for someone who could deliver high-quality, customized solutions at reasonable prices with fast turnaround times. The pivotal moment occurred during a conversation with Janet Morrison, who owned a textile manufacturing company that produced specialized fabrics for automotive interiors. Janet had been quoted $45,000 by a major software consulting firm for a production tracking system that David knew he could build in 6 weeks for a fraction of that cost. When David proposed delivering the same functionality for $12,000, Janet was skeptical that the quality would match the expensive alternative. David made a bold decision that would define his business strategy going forward. He offered to build a prototype system for free, with payment only required if Janet was completely satisfied with the results. This approach required significant upfront investment of time and energy, but it eliminated all risk for potential clients while demonstrating David's confidence in his abilities. If the prototype failed to meet expectations, David would absorb the loss completely. The risk paid off dramatically. David's prototype not only met Janet's requirements, but exceeded them in several important ways. His system was faster and more intuitive than the commercial alternatives Janet had evaluated, and it included features specifically designed for textile manufacturing that generic systems couldn't provide. Most importantly, David had built the system to integrate seamlessly with Janet's existing equipment and workflows, minimizing the disruption of implementation. Janet was so impressed that she not only paid for the full system, but also introduced David to other textile manufacturers facing similar challenges. Word spread quickly within the industry about a developer who could deliver custom solutions at reasonable prices with guaranteed satisfaction. David began receiving more project requests than he could handle individually, which forced him to make another crucial decision about scaling his business. Instead of hiring employees immediately, David developed a systematic approach to project delivery that maximized efficiency and quality control. He created standardized templates for common business functions like inventory management, production scheduling, and customer tracking. These templates allowed him to build custom solutions faster while maintaining high-quality standards. He also developed detailed documentation processes that made it easy for clients to maintain and modify systems after implementation. David's reputation for reliability and practical solutions led to increasingly valuable contracts. A furniture manufacturer paid $25,000 for a comprehensive production management system. A food processing company paid $35,000 for an integrated inventory and quality control platform. Each successful project generated referrals to similar businesses, creating a steady pipeline of opportunities within industries that David understood well. The financial transformation was remarkable. Within 2 years of that elevator conversation with Robert, David was earning over $200,000 annually from consulting work. He had eliminated all his debt, moved to a comfortable apartment, and established a 6-month emergency fund that ensured he would never again face the financial desperation that had defined his previous 7 years. But David's success extended beyond personal financial recovery. He had identified a sustainable business model that created genuine value for clients while generating substantial income for himself. Small and medium-sized manufacturers were willing to pay premium prices for software solutions that were specifically designed for their industries and delivered by someone who understood their operational challenges. David's combination of technical skills and real-world business experience made him uniquely qualified to serve this market. The most significant milestone came when David incorporated his consulting practice as Martinez Manufacturing Solutions and hired his first employee. Sarah Kim was a recent computer science graduate who was eager to learn about business application development. David trained her using the same systematic approach that had made his own work so efficient, and together they were able to handle twice as many projects while maintaining quality standards. Today, David operates Martinez Manufacturing Solutions from a modern office complex, employing 12 full-time developers and generating over $2 million in annual revenue. His company has completed more than 300 projects for manufacturing businesses across North America, and his systematic approach to custom software development has become a model that other consultants study and attempt to replicate. But the numbers represent only the surface level of David's transformation. The deeper change is in his understanding of how opportunity and preparation intersect in ways that are rarely predictable or controllable. That 3-minute elevator conversation with Robert Chen happened only because David was working as a cleaning person in the right building at the right time. The opportunity was random, but David's ability to recognize and capitalize on it was the result of years of accumulated experience and knowledge. David frequently speaks at business schools and entrepreneurship conferences, sharing the specific strategies that enabled his transition from extended poverty to sustainable wealth. His core message focuses on what he calls skill maintenance during crisis, the importance of keeping professional abilities sharp even when immediate applications aren't apparent. During his 7 years of struggle, David never completely stopped programming, even though he had no paying clients or obvious reasons to continue developing his skills. The foundation of David's business success is his systematic approach to understanding client needs and delivering solutions that exceed expectations while remaining profitable. This methodology emerged directly from his years of financial desperation, when every decision had immediate consequences and waste was impossible to afford. David learned to focus on essential features, deliver results quickly, and ensure complete client satisfaction, because he couldn't afford to lose projects or damage his reputation. David's client acquisition strategy remains unchanged from his early days. He still offers to build prototypes without payment, demonstrating value before requesting compensation. This approach has resulted in a nearly perfect client retention rate and generates most of his new business through referrals. Clients trust David because he absorbs all the risk of project failure, and they recommend him enthusiastically because his solutions consistently improve their business operations. The manufacturing industry became David's specialty, not through strategic planning, but through following opportunities as they emerged. Each successful project taught him more about specific industry challenges, which made him increasingly valuable to similar businesses. David now understands manufacturing workflows, supply chain complexities, and regulatory requirements that pure software developers rarely encounter. This knowledge allows him to build solutions that integrate seamlessly with existing business processes. David's personal life has stabilized remarkably, but he maintains habits developed during his years of poverty that continue to serve him well. He lives modestly despite his wealth, saves aggressively, and makes decisions based on long-term sustainability rather than short-term gratification. David says that 7 years of genuine financial fear created perspectives about money and security that prosperity hasn't diminished. Most importantly, David has never forgotten the feeling of being dismissed and overlooked because of his circumstances. His company prioritizes hiring developers from non-traditional backgrounds, including career changers, people recovering from personal setbacks, and candidates whose experience doesn't fit conventional expectations. David believes that adversity often develops problem-solving skills and resilience that can't be taught in traditional educational settings. The elevator conversation that changed David's life lasted only 3 minutes, but it represented the intersection of preparation, opportunity, and willingness to take risks. David had maintained his technical skills during years when programming seemed irrelevant to his survival. When opportunity appeared unexpectedly, he was prepared to recognize and act on it immediately. Most importantly, he was desperate enough to accept an uncertain consulting opportunity rather than staying with the security of his predictable part-time jobs. David often reflects on how many similar opportunities he might have missed during his years of struggle because he wasn't ready to recognize them or too discouraged to pursue them. Success rarely announces itself clearly. It usually appears as uncertain possibilities that require faith and effort without guaranteed outcomes. The difference between transformation and continued struggle often comes down to willingness to act on incomplete information when the potential benefits justify the risks involved. End of the story. Leave a like, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories of overcoming, and leave your comment below. Your message might brighten someone's day. See you in the next video.